Next on Married People's Business,
8 things couples should do to become rich.
we're going to go through 8 crucial topics that couples should discuss when they're on the path and the road to success and building their riches. But before you watch this video, what we want you to do is we want you to hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and share for more content.
Stay tuned.
We're back, and we want to welcome all of our viewers and listeners to this wonderful podcast, Married People's Business. And we have a lot to talk to you about today. Yeah. And one of the topics that is a crucial topic for married couples, and particularly just couples together that are trying to build something, is how do you create wealth? How do you create those riches? And today's podcast is entitled 8 Things Couples Should Do to Become Rich.
Things. We narrowed it down. Obviously, this is not an all-inclusive list, but some of the things that we have done.
That is correct. It's not an all-inclusive list, as Shalice said, but these are just some of the tips that we have kind of accumulated over our time being married for 16 years. It'll be 17 years in September, right?
Yes, sir. Good. Look at you getting the number right.
Hey, I got to do what I can to stay off the couch, baby. I'm always trying to stay off the couch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You do a good job.
Oh, I appreciate that. So that's what we're going to do in this podcast. We're going to go through 8 things that couples should do to become rich. And we're going to start off at our number one thing is what we did when we started off as a married couple.
Yes, you have to talk to each other. Don't be afraid to talk about money. I don't care how bad the situation is, when you're coming together as one, I think it's very important that you be able to talk about money, be able to be open and honest so that you can get on the same page.
I would agree with that. And I think that any type of a good relationship always has to start off with communication. And that's the only way that you can really build and develop any sound fundamental relationship is through communication.
Yeah, I mean, as hard as it may seem, there may be some embarrassment there. There may be some, hey, I'm not so thrilled with the way that I've spent in the past. Or on the other end, you don't want somebody to know exactly how much you do have.
Well, yeah, that's true. And I think when we got married on September 2nd, I almost messed that up. September 2nd, 2006. I got that right. At 5:03 p.m., I believe is when you walk down that aisle, right?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
we were done at 5:15,
I gave the time like I was online again. Gave the time at 5:03 p.m. Yeah, so that was one of the things that we did when we first got married was we really laid our cards out on the table and we sat down and really talked about kind of what we were doing in terms of money. Because when you get married and when you start a relationship, not just when you get married, but when you get into any type of a relationship, whether it be an intimate relationship or a business relationship, I think you have to lay your cards out on the table.
I agree. And
laying your cards out on the table is really talking about the different cultures that you come from. Because I'm a firm believer that culture is just not specifically set to race or gender. Culture is really a way of doing things and how you, particularly in your finances, how you handle money. So we came from you and I came from 2 different cultures.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
spending cultures and saving cultures.
That's right.
I was a fashion plate.
Well, yes, you were. You were a very cute fashion plate, and you still are.
Well, thank you so very much.
But a more responsible, cute fashion plate. Yeah, but I can remember, my culture and what my father taught me was really he didn't believe in debt. So that was the culture I brought into our relationship. Was I was really debt adverse. I did not. I think I own 1 credit card. Actually, I still own the same credit card that I have had since I was a senior in college. And I have never really had any other credit cards outside of that.
That credit card got a lot of rewards points.
It does, because we talked about that. I told you that was something that was very important to me in terms of not getting into debt. And your philosophy, not that you were a person that believed in having a lot of debt, but you were a little bit more comfortable with having credit cards and debt. And those two cultures would have collided had we not talked initially, right?
Right. Well, I'll be, just transparent for our audience. I was literally living above my means in college, trying to keep up with the Nautica and the Tommy Hilfiger and the clothes of the 90s. And hey, I was in college. I didn't have a real job to pay these bills, so I was paying the minimum. And so what really kind of happened with me is I had to look at all of this when I got ready to apply for law school and then the bar exam, because they do ask about your financials on the bar application in Indiana. And so I started looking at that and I was like, oh, wow. Okay, yeah, of course I know I have school debt, the loans from school or whatever, but I was like, good grief. And by that time, I wasn't even wearing, I don't even think I owned any of those same clothes, but I'm still paying for them, and I'm in law school getting ready to graduate. So it was the realization of, now I'm figuring out how do I adult, with my finances, and then got that under, control. But by the time we got engaged and started talking about our finances, it wasn't gone. And, those types of things, not that I was late, but sometimes, you got in situations where I was paying the minimum. And that doesn't make your credit score move when you're paying the minimum. And it doesn't hit the balance either.
That's right. But I think the key to this point, don't be afraid to talk about money.
Yeah.
The point is that it could have been very easy for you to withhold that from me. And I can remember you being very open and honest about your financial situation. And I would like to think that I was a good husband and I understood where you were coming from and understood the team atmosphere that we created in our marriage. And by talking about it, we, really kind of developed a plan in terms of how to tackle it, because your debt now becomes my debt. And I took my vow serious, so I didn't view it specifically as your debt anymore. I viewed it as something that we needed to deal with together. And I think we did. And I don't think that would have happened had we not been open and honest with each other and decided to get our financial cultures out front and really talk about that.
Yep. I think you're right.
There we go. All right. So don't be afraid to talk about money, because that could lead you to bigger and better financial success as a couple. So what is number 2?
Number 2. Write down specific goals.
Specific goals. And I read one of the things that I do every morning is I read a corresponding chapter of Proverbs. So for example, if I'm on the 3rd day of the month, I'm reading Proverbs 3. If I'm the 4th day, Proverbs 4, and so forth. And one of my favorite Proverbs is Proverbs 21:5, that talks about the plans of the diligent. And the plans of the diligent lead to success, essentially. I'm paraphrasing that. But that's basically what Proverbs 21:5 talks about, is planning. If you want to be successful, you have to plan, and you have to have specific goals and how you go about doing that. And I know we did that when we got married. That's one of the very first things that we did, was we set out a financial plan for ourselves.
That's true. Because we are goal setters anyway. I think both of us had that in our nature. So when we sat down and talked about not only my debt, but even our school debt, we were like, okay, here's the plan as to how we can try to eliminate these, pay these down. Our vehicles, we bought a house. All of that was in that plan, trying to, set time periods. And, it's about doing a little bit at a time. Don't think that you have to, take this big old bite, big old leap, and you can get everything done all at once. In life, you set goals, you set time periods, and we did the same thing in our goals of, building our wealth.
Yes, Proverbs 21:5 says, the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty only to poverty. And I believe that Shalisa and I really codified that concept when we got married. and we joined forces, because one of the things that we did was, and we still do today, we still goal set, and we still specifically set out financial goals, fun goals, social goals, places we want to visit. All of those things are on our plans, and we have individual goals and plans that we set. Like I have my own plans that also, include my wife, and I keep those on the refrigerator so that I look at them every morning. When I get up, from the time I get up until the time I go to sleep, I'm looking at my goals. One of my goals is to keep God first. Another goal is to honor and cherish my wife. Another one of my goals is to provide 20 scholarships for 20 African American students from Gary, Indiana. And I have a whole host of goals, which I won't go through today. But the point is that, if you want to reach your financial milestones and accomplish things, you have to be specific in terms of what you want. Because if you don't plan, it's just not going to happen. The chances are, if you write something down, it's gonna stick in your subconscious, and you're gonna be constantly aiming at that, even if you're not necessarily consciously aware that you're aiming at it.
That's what I was gonna say, talking about writing it down, how important it is to write it down, because when you don't write it down, you don't follow through.
Yeah, and it can be something as simple as, we're gonna say $20 a day or $20 a month. And those pennies add up, but if you never write it down, what writing your goals down does is it makes you accountable to that goal.
Right.
And it makes you accountable to achieving what you have decided to put down on paper. So I would strongly encourage any business partners, couples, whether it be intimate or in a business setting, if you want to accomplish riches, if you want to reach your financial goals, then you have to be specific in terms of what you write down and goal set.
I agree.
All right, number 3, where are we at?
Go ahead with number 3.
Number 3 is one of my favorites. It's F the Joneses. So I'm not going to curse on this podcast because my mama might be watching. So I'm not going to say the F word. But y'all are very intelligent people. If you're watching this podcast and you're watching our tips on how what couples should do to become rich, I think you probably know what the F word means. So I'm not going to go and explain it to you. But if you want to reach your financial goals as a couple or as business partners, you have to do away with the Joneses. And I think everybody understands who the Joneses are. Today, they'd probably be more identified with the Kardashians or some other fictitious Hollywood character. But the Joneses are basically characters that go back in time. I think it started in a comic strip in the 1900s of a family, the McGinnis family, I think is the comic strip. And in that comic strip, they always talked about keeping up with the Joneses. Now, what I thought was funny about the history when you research this, you never really see who the Joneses are. So the Joneses are never revealed. Only the McGinnises are revealed. And the McGinnises are constantly shooting to do everything that the Joneses do. So that's the folklore, and people have gone into debt even today and live miserable lives even today because they're trying to keep up with these fictitious Joneses.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you have to check your spending habits. You got to be real with what you have and live the lifestyle that you can afford. So, if you're trying to build wealth, but you keep looking down the street, to see what is going on down there and trying to keep up with what they got, you're not going to be able to do that.
Well, yeah, and I think in this day and age with social media and Instagram and filters and booty lifts, BBLs,
What?
I just learned what a BBL was just a few days ago. Ain't that what it is?
Brazilian butt lifts.
Yeah, I'm like, those booties ain't real. I've been seeing them on
How
Instagram.
did we get there?
Well, I'm just saying that nothing is real anymore. You see what I'm saying? So, like, when you're looking at the Joneses can come in a whole lot of different forms. It could come as your friend that you think is doing so well. It could come as, the Kardashians. It could come at, you know, some of these rappers that you see throwing bling and doing all these things. Half those cars rented in those videos. Those houses are rented. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of what was the female group? Was it 3XL? What was the name of that black female group where they did the Cribs, and then years later they ended up revealing that the Cribs episode that they did was all fake. It was not real.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, you don't remember that? Yeah, I'm sure. I can't. You know, I'm not an R&B guy, so I can't quite remember the group, but it'll come to me maybe in one of the next podcasts. I'll reveal that group. But it was a group, R&B group that did a Cribs, and the Crib was years later. You know, they didn't reveal it at the time, but years later they finally revealed that the house was rented, the cars were rented. None of that stuff was real. And the sad part about it is, you know, Yo MTV, the Cribs show, and all the things that we look at even today on Instagram, and we see all this money and people popping bottles. Sometimes we don't necessarily know whether or not those people are living paycheck to paycheck. So sometimes by you looking at the Joneses, you could be forced to live beyond your spending means that puts you in debt because you're trying to keep up with somebody that might not be doing well, but you don't necessarily know it because they're not telling you that.
Well, and I think it just takes me back to saying, okay, you know, you have to look at what your spending habits are, because when you're trying to build, you know, this goes back to the setting goals, you know.
Right.
So if you are minding your house and not the Joneses, then you can create your goals and spending habits that fall in line with you building riches and wealth.
And I think for couples, particularly, you know, intimate couples, when, you know, that's probably one of the hardest things for people to do is to not look over the gate at what your neighbors have, because, you know, sometimes people are just inherently competitive. And I thank God that we're so far from that. Like we run our own race, and that's one of the things that I love about the Talbers, because we are very we worry about our own business. And you know, we've had people come up to us and criticize us because we're two lawyers, and they feel that we should be living a certain way. They feel that we should have Lamborghinis, that we should have, you know...
Lamborghinis?
Yeah, Lamborghinis. That's not a good car no more?
I mean, that's very extravagant.
Okay, there you go. They think...
no lawyers driving around Northwest Indiana in Lamborghinis.
There's a couple lawyers driving Lamborghinis in this area,
okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to say their names, but, you know, Bentleys and all these expensive cars and, you know, $300 million homes. And we live very modestly. And a lot of the reason I think that we live modestly is because we have a plan, and you know, we're doing things according to our financial plan in terms of building wealth. And I forgot what rapper said this. It might have been like Jay-Z, but he said, "Wealth is not loud." You know, wealth is not loud. Wealth is not rich. Being rich is not loud. And you know, they wrote a whole book about it, the quintessential millionaire next door, right? So we don't have to necessarily show what we have and all the investments and the business investments and different things that we have, because that's for us to do. We're not worried about what somebody else is doing and trying to keep pace with what they're doing, because we're running our own race. And I think part of that has allowed for us to we've made very good investments, not only in our business, but in the market, because we're worried about us. We're not worried about what somebody else is doing.
Yeah, well, I think that's, you know, again, basically mind your own business.
I guess you can say it that way if you want to make it simple. Don't mind your own business. Try not to keep up with the Joneses.
No, don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses. I try not to. Just mind your own business.
Whatever you want to say, however you want to put it. Just stay out the Joneses' business, because they not real anyway. You know?
Right.
Okay, number 4.
Number 4 Eliminating debt.
Number 4, eliminating debt is if you're a couple and you want to become rich, you have to eliminate debt. And I know that might seem cliche, but there's a whole industry, probably a multi-billion-dollar industry, because of debt creation in our cultures. You got these cash savings places. You have rent a center. You have even car lots. Expensive car lots, consumer goods and consumer products. The credit card industry. How did I miss the credit card industry? That's probably the biggest thing, particularly for our youngsters.
Well, I think that this takes me back to the conversation that we had to have about us, whatever our financial situation was when we were getting married. So to eliminate the debt, you have to sit down, you have to map out a plan on how you're going to do that. I think that people try to do it in such a huge, excuse me.
Bless you.
I know, I'm sneezing. Sorry about that.
Bless you.
Thank you. So people try to do it in like such large chunks instead of, biting one bite at a time. So you say, okay, if I've got this credit card, that's got $5,000 balance, set a time period on what you can do to pay that off. Even if it's, if the minimum is, $50 a month, try to pay $55 a month. Or try to pay $100 a month. Whatever you do, pay more than the minimum, because then that helps you eliminate that debt faster. And that interest isn't accruing. They're not making money off of you, and you get rid of that debt much more quickly than paying the minimum does. And then you improve your credit scores when you do that kind of stuff too.
No, I agree with that 100%. And I think the first thing, because eliminating debt might seem simple, but I think the first step to doing it is just to identify you got to know what debt is. And I think a lot of times people get in trouble just because they don't necessarily understand the definition of debt, and it could vary depending on who you talk to, but in the Tolber household, in the Tolber clan, anything that you pay for that you don't have the money for is debt, is in my definition of it. So Shalise and I made a very, I would say, wise decision early on in our marriage that if we don't have the money, then we're not going to pay for it, right? So, credit card debt, school debt, car debt, all of those things can be considered debt. But I think the most important thing is, do you have the money to pay it off? Because one of the things that Shalise and I did is we use credit cards more so to get points and rewards. So there are tricky ways that you can get cash back, but we never use a credit card unless we have the money in the bank to pay for it. And we don't keep credit card balances. I don't think I've ever had a balance on a credit card. I've always paid my credit cards off in full.
Well, the distinction that I would make when you're talking about defining what debt is, you mentioned cars and school debt. That's not something that, was paid off easily. Right now, we have 2 vehicles and we're paying, car notes on them. They were financed. But we did have an aggressive plan to pay off our school loans, so we were able to do that. Thank God we were able to do that. But there are some things that you are going to be paying, a monthly payment for. But if you can get rid of the credit card debt, we basically use our credit cards like cash. We pay the balances off every month. It doesn't carry over. We get those rewards points or the cash back or whatever the programs are. I definitely take advantage of those things because, they're not going to make money off of us at this point.
That's exactly right.
But, mortgages on your home, that's debt too. But still at the same time, you sit down and you create a plan as to how you can get that debt eliminated or as low as possible in the most aggressive way.
Right, and I think the point that you make about, like when you say about the cars, yeah, you can finance a vehicle or finance something, but the point is that you didn't have to do that if you didn't want to. If you wanted to pay it off completely, you could, but there's certain benefits to building credit. There's certain benefits to, like I think on my truck, I think I got I bought it during the pandemic. So it was like, I want to say it was close to almost 0% interest. So it's like almost free money. So why, not to go down that rabbit hole, but why pay, a whole chunk of money when you could basically get it financed for little or nothing? So that's the point I'm making.
Yeah,
in terms of if you have it, right.
Yeah.
So if you can afford not to incur debt, then you should try to. But if you are going to incur debt, as to Shalisa's point, then try to get the best financing that you can, but have a plan to pay it off very quickly so you don't get hit with interest.
Okay, let's move on to our next point. So the next thing, number 5, save money in different buckets.
Save money in different buckets.
Yeah. So with this, we kind of identified different buckets being, you've got your general fund that pays your bills and all of that. So that's separate from saving. Saving for emergencies, saving for vacations, saving for investments, retirement. Those are the things that are outside of your everyday household needs that you can put money to the side and start building nest eggs, start building your wealth and riches.
Yeah, I think the plan here is that organized financial household is more inclined to probably reach your financial destination than a disorganized one. And the best way to organize your financial household is to have things separated and segregated. So, and it also forces you to accumulate the funding for certain things that you might want, so you won't go into debt. So, particularly what Shalisa and I do is we have, a vacation fund. When we got married, we started a wedding fund, when we got engaged, we opened up a wedding account so that we could save money and put money aside, because our goal was not to go into debt after we have our wedding. We didn't want to start our marriage off in debt. So for, I want to say about the year, once I proposed to her, I think we got married within a year of that, and we had an account opened up, a segregated account that we did not touch, and we just put money aside in that account up until the wedding day. So we basically paid off our wedding and our reception. We paid it all off. We had no debt. We do that with our vacations, vacation funds. We have a specific emergency fund, so a rainy day fund that we put money aside. I want to say we put 10% of what we earn into that rainy day fund, along with other investments. We have our separate investment accounts. So through our business, we have retirement accounts that we put money that's automatically taken out of our checks and segregated and earmarked out. And I think that we might have another, I'm trying to think of the other account that we might have. That might be it.
Well, we have the retirement fund, which is, it's not a 401k per se, but it's still a retirement fund. And then we have what we rolled over from our previous employers, but that's not something that we can contribute to. We have life insurance, we have disability insurance, and these type of investments, are not just about, stocks or anything like that. These are the investment accounts, are, I guess I'll say this too before I forget. These are joint accounts. Both of our names are on these accounts.
That's a good point.
At the banks. So it's not my account, his account. We don't have separate accounts. The accounts that we did have separately, we actually used the account that I had to put away our money for when we were saving up the capital for opening our firm. So that account only existed for that purpose after we got married, you know, and now I only have that account there because we financed one of our vehicles there. And so they take money out of it, so I have to transfer money into that account. But otherwise, our accounts are joint. And that, I think that's very important to note as well.
Yeah, I think that's important to note as well. Primarily because I think that a house divided will fall. And I talk to couples all the time because people come to us and ask us for advice, relationship advice all the time, and we're not relationship coaches or gurus. You know, we learn and have to read up on things just like the next person. But one of the things that I always encourage couples that come to us and seek advice is try not to have a divided house. And I think that you start your relationship off wrong when you have separate accounts. Because I talked to a couple where they were having some financial trouble and they both had their own separate checking accounts. And so, you know, that was her money and that was his money. And I think that first it sets a negative tone in your house that you're not a team and you're not working together as one. And then it's just, it's hard to track and keep up financially with whether or not you're meeting your financial goals, because how can you do that if it's not your account? So I think you start off on the wrong foot, but Shalice makes a good point. Joint accounts not only mentally strengthen your relationship financially, but also, you know, from a relationship standpoint, it really gets you off on a strong foundation.
Right, and obviously, if you are not, you know, if we're talking about partnerships, you know, people who are not involved in a relationship, having a joint account to start that business, I think, is very important as well. So, like I mentioned, that you know, we use the account to save the initial capital for opening our firm. You talked about us, you know, having that account to save for our wedding. Partners can do the same thing, having that joint account, because then you become accountable to one another in building the wealth for your business.
Yeah, I agree, and you know, I just think that sometimes we as couples don't necessarily understand the power of numbers, the power of compounding interest is a big thing, and you would be surprised how fast your money grows when you sock it away in an investment account. Forgot one account. We have a brokerage account as well with Charles Schwab, where we do our market investing, and we've bought some very, very good financial, very good stocks out of that account. But you would be surprised at how fast your money grows when you're not worried about it, and when you sock it away in the market in a brokerage account, or if you sock it away in a separate account, you look up and you got $20,000-$30,000 because of compound interest and because it's just growing, it's just accumulating once you put money in. And the only way you can do that is you have to have a mindset to specifically earmark funds into some sort of an account.
All right, let's move on to, we got 3 more to go?
Yeah, we're almost there.
Number 6, seek advice.
Yes, you remember I told you about Proverbs 15:22 says, without counsel plans fail, but with many advisors they succeed. One of my favorite scriptures. So you have to seek advice. You cannot do this on your own. And I think one of the fallacies that couples have, and not just couples, but people generally have, is they think that by going to someone and asking for advice, that's a sign of weakness. And I disagree, and I always have. I think that when you go and seek advice, that's a sign of strength. And you'll be surprised that, you know, the information that people are willing to offer you if you open up and just ask them to help you. And I know Shalice and I, we have mentors. I know I have mentors that have given me some very great financial advice about business, about stocks, about bonds. And I take that advice a lot of times. And sometimes the advice, you know, is not to do something. And that has helped me financially grow and helped me in my relationship with Shalise. So you got to have good advisors around you.
Yeah, I would say those, seeking advice, you get to a financial advisor, a financial counselor. Counseling itself could help, not necessarily geared towards finances, but the counseling, our premarital counseling, I think helped.
That's a really good point.
Aspect of attacking our financial situation, our goals and setting goals and looking at debt and all that. Books, research, internet, use tools that are out there. You can, so many things are free on the internet that allow you to find the advice that you need in order to get a savings plan or a financial plan together for you and your partner.
Yeah, and I think that try not to be, if you want to get on the path of building riches as a couple, whether it's an intimate couple or a business partner, you have to think, you can't think literally all the time. So first thing that people think of when someone says seek advice, I think most people think like a live human being, having somebody there walk you through each and every phase of your financial journey. And I was taught early on that advice and mentoring can come from many different sources. You can learn something from a child if you observe them, right? The Bible talks about looking at ants and how ants work, and I think in the book of Proverbs. And one of the things that I use as a mentoring component to help me with our family finances is I read, so I use some of the best business minds in the world to serve as my mentors. People I've never even met mentor me. So I got a book right here, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, who was Warren Buffett's mentor. One of the books that got Shalise and I on our financial journey to building a better, sounder financial plan for ourselves and our family was a book by David Back called Smart Couples Finish Rich, I believe is what the name of the book is. And, these are people that you might not ever meet, but these people offer you great advice and wisdom because they're speaking to you and mentoring you through the words in their books. So don't be literal when seeking advice. Get advice from books, get advice from people. Observe, open your eyes, and do all kind of cool things to make sure that you get off on the financial path that you deserve.
All right, you want to give them number 7?
Yeah, what is number 7 is what? Spend time together, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Number 7, spend time together. And I think that's very important. You want to talk about that?
Well, I think what happens is when you spend time together, you are getting to know one another. You're talking about so many different things. So it's not a matter of, hey, we got to sit down and have this meeting and talk about our finances. It's just, everyday life and having time together. We work out together. So during those, 1 hour, 90-minute workouts, we end up talking about so many different things, whether it's business, whether it's our goals, whether it's, laughing and joking. But a lot of stuff is revealed when you're spending time together. We have lunch together. So, you're sitting down at dinner or whatever the case may be, going for walks, whatever it is that you all enjoy doing together, spend that time together because I think that reveals what you both desire, what you both have in mind for goals. And this holds true for business partners. You can't just go into business with someone without knowing about that person. And the way that you learn about that person is when you're spending time together. And that's how you learn about their financial culture, what they may have grown up to think about spending money or not spending money or how to handle money and all those things.
That's true. And I think some of the coolest ideas for our business, for our law firm, we've talked about while we were working out in the morning. We work out every morning at like 5:30 a.m. So we're up in the morning, we're working out, we're running, we're lifting weights. And during that hour time that we work out, Shalise and I are talking about life, we're talking about relationships, we're talking laughing, we're joking, we're talking about our finances. I remember, I'm not going to ever forget this. I remember we were working out one of the mornings we were working out, and during that time we talked about what stocks we were going to invest in during the pandemic. And we, when everybody was freaking out about the pandemic and saying, hey, don't spend money, we're in a recession, things are going bad, the stock market is dropping. I remember you and I working out and saying, this is the time to buy. And I remember that week we bought tons of stock. We bought stock in a lot of different places. And once the market rebounded, we did very, very well. And all of that came out of you and I talking over working out. We eat lunch together pretty much every day. I would say pretty much every day. If I'm available, if I'm not in depositions, or if I'm not in court, or if she's not in court, we're usually eating lunch together. And we are talking about the firm. We're talking about planning. We're talking about business pursuits. We're talking about all these different things during our intimate times.
All right, let's get to the last one. The last tip, number 8. Be a giver.
Be a giver. All right. So Proverbs 3:9 says, honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce. So that, I believe, sums it all up. I don't think you can reach financial prosperity unless you have a heart to give. And primarily, you got to give to God first. So Shalise and I, we're tithers. We have always been tithers. We believe in that truly. We make sure that God gets his off the top first because we want him to bless, our barns and our vats, and we want everything that we touch to prosper. So I think that's the first step for couples. You have to make sure that you give first to God and thank him for giving you the power and the talent to be able to develop and make money. And then the second thing you want to do is to also be a giver to others and to make sure that you are advancing, good initiatives. Shalise and I are one of our things that we love doing is being philanthropic and making sure that we help people and nonprofits and other organizations, because that comes back to you tenfold.
It's simple to me. Sowing and reaping. You reap what you sow. If you sow and you give to others, it will come back to you 100 times forward.
That is true. That is true. And that is 8 things couples should do to become rich. And we are done. I think those were great tips, very sound tips, and we hope that these tips help you. And what we're going to ask you to do, if these tips help you and you enjoyed this video, we're going to ask that you hit the like and you hit the subscribe button and continue to follow our podcast for more content like this, and make sure that you continue to share it with your friends and your family. And we'll continue to make great content to help you, your loved ones, your business partners achieve all the great things that you are put on this earth to achieve.
Absolutely. Thank you for tuning in.
God bless you. Take care.